Good morning, students. Welcome to the Checkpoint Online Sessions. I'm Mr. Charles, and I'll be with you for the third lesson of week 4. Please go to your course book, page 75, Unit 6, Making Choices. In this unit, you will identify opposing arguments, distinguish fact from opinion, comment on and compare poems, and finally, write an advertisement, an ending to a narrative, and a short story. The Road Not Taken, a poem by Robert Frost, pages 75 and 76. Let's read together. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I should be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Poem analysis. The first thing we should note is that the use of vocabulary is easy and straightforward because the idea expressed is soul. There's only one idea throughout the poem, and it's expressed through an extended metaphor that is having to choose between two roads. There are no actual two roads here. He's not standing literally in a forest and trying to make a decision of choosing one road or another. But this is called an allegory. We'll meet it in a second. And this expresses an extended metaphor of a sub meaning, of a obvious meaning. So there's one literal meaning that is taken the forest or taken roads in a forest, but it doesn't really mean the two roads, the asphalt road. He's talking about having to choose among two choices that are difficult, little similar, and not so clear, and having to live with this choice for on. First of all, the regular and irregular features of this beautiful poem are that regularly each stanza consists of 5 lines. This is standard and regular for these poems. And here actually we don't call it a stanza since it's of irregular rhyme scheme. We call it a verse. So each verse consists of 5 lines. But generally speaking, each chunk, for example, this poem consists of 4 stanzas or 4 verses. And each one should consist of 5 lines. The irregularities or the irregular features of this poem is that there's an irregular rhyme scheme. Look at this. There's would, both, stood, could, growth, and then fair, claim, where, there, same. It's not consistent from one verse to the other. And there's one full stop at the end of the 4th verse. And this does not exist in poems, or generally is not acknowledged in poetry to have a full stop at the end as if it's a story. Diction, the language, most words are monosyllabic, And if you remember, this has been an occurring idea. The monosyllabic words, they suggest as if a child wrote the words. We said, if you remember, it's a child or someone who's in a hurry or someone who's afraid. So someone here, as if a child wrote it, or someone wanting to return to a child state. The being in a hurry choice could be, to a certain extent, valid as well, since he has to choose now one of two choices. But for Robert Frost, he's tired of the responsibility of being grown up, having to choose all the time. So he wishes to return to a child state where he has to make little, if none, number of choices. The use of the sustained metaphor or allegory of having to choose between two choices and not many other literal devices also denotes simplicity. So the whole poem is one literal device that is an extended metaphor or a sustained metaphor that is an allegory. And it is of, as we said, there's a surface meaning and there's a hidden meaning, or there's a second story meaning that is having to choose. And keeping one metaphor throughout the whole poem with the monosyllabic words, they both suggest that this is simple style. They both denote simplicity. The use of and at the beginning of lines conveys that the idea is of a continuous process, almost like a monologue. Each couplet should express, each two lines should express an idea. But for him to use and at the beginning of many lines, this conveys that this is almost like a speech. This is a continuous process, almost like someone's walking, which suits the setting of this poem, almost like a monologue. The third verse, the person or the persona is saying that in the distant future, he will be telling someone, regretfully, how his life went off in a particular direction because of decision he made that day in the wood, when he was forced to choose the road on which to proceed with his journey. He says, I shall be telling this with a sigh. So the sigh is the release, the gradual release of air, as if you're tired. You are of an internal struggle or pain. So he would be telling this story, I'll be telling this with internal pain. Somewhere ages and ages hence. That's why we said distant future. That there were two roads that were separate, diverged in a wood, and he took the one that people less took it. So the one that is chosen less. He decided to be different. And this choice has made all the difference. That's what he's going to tell to the person of the future. The allegory, um, this picture is of or is from Animal Farm by George Orwell, and it tells the story of animals deciding to separate from each other, and part of those animals deciding to do a coup and be in charge of the other animals. And the allegory here, by definition, is a story, a poem, or just a picture that can be interpreted to reveal another meaning other than the literal, obvious one. And that other meaning is typically a moral or a political vice. And the quotation reads, the allegory in the Animal Farm reads, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And this applies to our time, and this applies to people, that a lot of politicians claim that all people are equal, all parties are equal, all demands are to be met equally. But the continuous separation of people based on certain criteria and not really equalizing among them is the action that we have nowadays. Some animals are more equal than others. This is impossible. You cannot have things that are more equal than other things. They are either equal or not equal. But for this structure, some things are more equal than others. This is the allegory of always there will be people considering themselves better than others, countries considering themselves better than others, um, parties, religious groups, ethnic groups. They all claim we're all equal, but they act as if they are more equal than others. The use of punctuation in this poem is quite elaborate. The thing that we notice between the first, second, third, and fourth stanzas or verses is that the first and the second verse end in a different punctuation mark from the third. That is a full stop. And the full stop suggests that the decision has been made as to which road the poet is taken. And this is expressed in the fourth verse or stanza. Imagine that you are walking, let's say, towards the exam and to the exam hall. And on your way to the exam hall, you're talking, debating with your friends whether this question validates for this answer or this answer validates for these set of questions. When you reach the exam hall, everything will stop. Every debate in your head or actual debate with your friends would stop. Either because of the rule that there is no talking in the exam hall, but you yourself, you're ready to make the applying of decision. You're ready to apply your decision of the debate. There's no more debate. Now you have to take an action. And this is the poet. He was debating whether which road to take. The first, second, and third stanza or verse. At the end of the third, the full stop denotes that he's ready to take the action. He's ready to live on with his action, or the road, the literal road he's expressing. Run on sentences. First of all, a run on sentence occurs when two independent clauses that can form a complex sentence are joined improperly, as in the below example. I love to write papers. I would write one every day if I had time. So you have I love to write papers, an independent clause, almost a sentence, it can stand alone. I would write one every day if I had the time. This one with the first one are not linked whatsoever. There are many ways or a number of ways to correct a run-on sentence based on its context. But the most common way is to insert a conjunction. And for you to say, I love to write papers and I would write one every day if I had the time. You could also say, hence I would write one every day if I had the time. You could also join them with a punctuation mark, with a full stop. I love to write papers, period. I would write one every day if I had the time. But the most common tool to fix a run-on is to add a conjunction. It is more of a link than the full stop or an actual punctuation mark. The run-on sentences in Frost's poem from line to line suggest that someone's walking and has no time to make pauses or full stops, except for, as we said, the third verse or third stanza, where it decides to stop and decide to take an action and to live with that action and to express what he's going to do in the future with this action. That's why he puts a full stop. We're done for today. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe and keep up the good work.